Hi, I'm Caleb Cox. Welcome to Northern California. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Wojtek tracker. If you're familiar with my channel, or if you know me on Bushcraft USA, you know I absolutely adore the tracker knife. I love the versatility, its design, and its history. So today I'm going to be testing out one of the newest offerings made in Austria, the Wojtek, which is named after a bear that served the Polish army in World War II. So the knife measures 12 inches. It's made out of D2 steel, has a Swiss sawback, which is very similar to the Dave Beck design on his trackers, and is about 5/32 thick. It's just under 3/16. Now most of the trackers that I normally use are usually about a 1/4 inch thick, so this one is definitely on the thinner side. So I am anticipating that it'll not be as effective in its chopping, but it will actually be better in terms of performance in its detail work and linear cuts. So one of the things the tracker knife is most famous for is its curls, making feather sticks. So we're going to try one out right now. Alright, I found a piece of downed pine. I like to use deadwood as much as possible. Right. Now what I'm noticing on here is most tracker knives try to have a 1/4 round. And a 1/4 round makes the draw cuts when you're making tracker curlies really easy. This one doesn't have as much of a 1/4 round. Almost a 90-degree abrupt change there, but we're going to see how it does. Get off some of these limbs right here. It's easier for me. There we go. That's not too bad. There's a few of them. Alright, I was walking through the forest and I saw this piece here. It's covered in ants, so what I'm going to do is lick these for nourishment. No, I'm just kidding. Well, this looked like a piece of cedar. At least it had some nice straight grain on the outside. So what I'm going to do is try to process this down a little bit. See what I can get out of it. The ants go flying one by one. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some curls on this edge right here. Now this wood's pretty wet, so I wouldn't use this in making a fire. But if you had to in a pinch, you could use some feather sticks like that. I'm looking for some better wood. It seems like most of the wood in this area is downed pine and oak. Poison oak coming out here. Want to avoid that. Alright, coming upon an old log like this, one of the first things I think of is fatwood. Fatwood is where the densest concentration of sap and resin from a tree, after it's been cut down, dies, gathers, and then you can use that to make excellent fire starter. So I'm going to just start pulling into this and see what we can find. Nope, it's oak. I was hoping it was a pine. It's an oak tree, so no resin in there. Okay, here's another stump I stumbled across. It's right in between two pine trees. So here's hoping that it is. Actually, looking at the bark, that's cedar again. So, no go for fatwood. All right, another one here. This one looks really promising. Yeah, you can see right in this section there's a good vein of it. So I'm going to dig further into the stump. See that color right there? That's fatwood. So all this right here. So I'm going to process this down a little bit to usable chunks. So you can see these here. All the resin impregnated in the wood. Over time, this stump is probably, I don't know, 100 years old. Beautiful. Right, now I'm going to be testing the forward chopping portion of the Wojtek on this tree, which has been damaged and is on its way out. Alright, that was actually pretty impressive. Okay, next I'm going to be testing out the sawback on here. Again, it's a Swiss saw design. There's not a lot of length, maybe just 2 inches right here with which to use. I think on my beck it's closer to 3 inches. So we'll see how it does with kind of the minimal saw space. Okay, you can see the notch it carved right in there. Not too bad. Break that off, do another. Another good notch. Again, it would benefit from being a little longer, but given what it is, it works really well. Now, using these that we just processed here, we're going to make a figure 4 deadfall. So I want to test the sharpness of the inner bevel, the inner grind, and I also want to test the notching ability for setting up our trap. Here, in this section, notch right below that one. Just one more. We're going to connect these 3 together. I want to keep it flat on the bottom. That way this one has something to rest against. Let me also... This looks like I squashed the bug. Didn't even see where he came from. Okay, trying to elongate that notch right there. Again, this one is going to marry right in there. That's looking pretty good. A notch right there, which is going to set on this. So because this is so high, I'm going to go ahead and break off the rest of this piece, because we don't need it that long. Okay. So looking at these, then I'm going to angle this one. So that it terminates in a point. for the back stick to rest upon. Make sure I'm closer to where I was. Okay, this one is going to rest in there, so I'm going to do a little notch right in that section. That's too big for me to lift. Okay. Everything to balance is a little bit tricky. But anyway, your bait would be on this piece. And what you'd need is a stick for any animal that would come start eating on this. Now gathered all the pieces I need to make a bow drill kit. Got leather for the ember, got a little piece of pine right here. Might be a little too brittle, we'll see. And then I've got wood for the spindle, and then wood for the hearth board, and a little bit of paracord. So I'm going to get these all tied up. Got my bow ready. Now I'm going to work on the spindle. So on the bottom end, I'm going to round this out a little bit, and I'm going to round a tip on the very top. A little bit circular. Like so. Refine it a little bit more. Then on the back end, we want as little friction as possible. So what I'm going to end up doing is making a rather sharp point. And that's going to go into our socket. There. So skinny on this end, thicker on this end. Okay, so that's going to be our spindle. And what I'm going to do is I am going to make a little divot right here inside of the hearth board, like this. Then I'm going to wind this up. You loop around the spindle, like so. And stand on this end. And you're going to place this in here. Okay, what I need is something to put this end in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start this. There's still a lot of brush and such around. Not a lot of flat areas here. Okay, started off. I seem to have disturbed an ant's nest, and now they're crawling all over my bow drill. Okay, now I'm going to be digging in here. I'm going to make a V. I'm going to dig my V a little bit deeper in there. Okay, we're going to try that. Just smoke today, no ember. But I would say successful. Okay, we are going to reuse our bow drill bow. I'm going to take the paracord off. I'm going to grab the Wojtek again, and I'm going to make some tracker curls. It's one thing to be at home where you've got a perfectly straight piece of wood. You're able to do things in a controlled environment. It's much harder going out into the forest, not finding what you want or what you like to use. I tend to love to use cedar, but I haven't found any down cedar today, so having to use this knotty pine. And that's knotty, not knotty. Okay, well, I'm just collecting these up right here. Let me use one more section of this before I call it. Yeah, that's probably enough. Just for a test fire. Now what I want to do is I want to test the spine and see how well it throws sparks to make a fire. I'm going to use a ferro rod. Fireworks here. Wood might be a touch on the wet side. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So the spine is sharp enough. It's supposed to be a Rockwell 60, which is a pretty hard blade. So far on the Wojtek knife, we've put it through its paces. We've tested the chopping edge. We've tested the sawback. We've tested the inner grind. And now I know what everyone wants to see a knife do is, are you going to throw it? Now, I normally don't recommend throwing knives that are not made for throwing. Throwing knives have a lower temper, and they're able to take the punishment and the rigors of actually being thrown at objects. These knives are not designed to do that. Having said that, though, it wouldn't be a full test for me unless I tried to throw it. Alright, so I'm going to talk about the knife a little bit, what I liked, what could be improved upon. First off, what I thought originally with the thinness of the blade, I thought that was going to be a detriment to it. Like, I've got a beck right here. That's a 1/4 inch thick. You can tell the difference in the thickness here. The Beck has incredible chopping power, but this one did too. I think it was very lightweight, very fast, and very nimble. Now granted, it can't do like what a carving axe does, like the chopping portion on a Beck. It's just not thick enough for that. But what it did, like with the tree and on the other chops that I was experimenting with, did really well. Another thing, like look at the difference in the length of the sawbacks. So the Beck has about a whole nother inch on it. Another inch would be beneficial for any kind of knife, especially when you're trying to work on doing notching or sawing as quickly as possible. What I think I would improve upon, like I think being used to the ergonomics of a Beck handle, which is very rounded, and that rounding makes it very comfortable. This one is very squared in comparison. Notice here, even though there are tapered sections right here, it has a very square format, and that it makes it good to index. But I found myself on the chopping, in at least this hand portion, I'm rubbing up against here. So if I were to modify this knife at all, these two nubs I would wind down, make a little bit smaller and thinner as possible, because that part gets a lot of work, and my finger was just getting tired on that. I don't mind the indexing up here. I actually felt like up here it was really good, but if I was to improve upon anything, I would just make the handle a little bit rounder. So all in all, that is my review of the Wojtek knife. I encourage you to go online. They're about $160. That's a great price for a tracker knife. So it has my endorsement. I'm not paid at all to endorse this knife, but as a connoisseur of the tracker knives, I really enjoyed the way it performed. Thanks for watching.